Stampers, welcome to fancyforstampin.com. I'm Josie Cauler. If you read my last blog post, you saw that I created 6 cards that included texture for Split Coast Stampers Dirty Dozen design team last July. Well, I was finally able to share them, and after doing that, I suggested that I might perhaps share a video or two showing you how to do some of the techniques that I used. One of the techniques I used was called the faux silk technique, and I did that in this card using tissue paper, glue, and ink. So this isn't the card that I did for Split Coast. I did this one just for you guys today. And if you can look, you can see that the background on this card is sort of crinkly, imitating silk. So I'm going to show you not only one stamping technique, which is the faux silk technique, but I'm also going to be using another technique, which is called masking, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. So this is what you need to start with. You need a piece of plain tissue paper, and then you need cardstock. You need a piece of 4 1/4 by 11 folded in half. You need a piece of Melon Mambo cardstock, and I ran this through the Eyelet 3D embossing folder. This measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then you need a piece of, I have 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 basic white cardstock that we're going to eventually attach this piece of tissue paper to. So we're going to set all that to the side. And then we also need, I used the perennial postage dies, and I cut out one of these banners for the sentiment. So I'm setting all that to the side. And I've got my tissue paper here. I'm using Tuxedo Black, the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So you need to be really careful when you do this, and I'll show you why, because I managed to mess it up a few times. If you don't let this ink dry before stamping the next image, you will get some black splotches all over your tissue paper, and we don't want that. So I've inked up my stamp really well, and I'm going to stamp one time. Okay, and then we have to let this dry, and I'll show you why. If I would go ahead and cover this up right now, this is what will happen. See that it smears, the ink smears. It did smear a little on the card that I made right there, but you can hardly see it, and it smeared a little up higher, but I was able to cover it with the sentiment. So we'll let this dry a little. I like to have a wipe available so I can wipe my hands if I get ink on them, and the block if I get ink on the block. And where are my wipes? Here they are. So let me notice I have some ink on my fingers, and I need to get rid of that so I don't transfer it to the tissue paper. Okay, and then I created masks for the daisy, and all it was I stamped the flower and then cut it out. And I think this might be dry enough that we can go ahead and stamp the next flower. So I'm going to cover that up with my mask and re-ink my stamp set. Okay, and I'm just going to put it a little higher than the original flower. And there we go. The mask came off with it, and that's okay. Okay, and we can wipe this off and set it to the side. Now we need to wait for this to dry again. I should have had my heat tool out, but I don't. And for the background, where did I drop it? I know I've got it somewhere. I'm using Elements of Text, the round one. So while that dries, I'm going to ink up this stamp. Okay, I think there's enough ink there, but we're going to have to cover up with our masks these two flowers. Just like that. And we'll stamp. And there we go. Not too bad. Not bad, if I do say so myself. We'll let that dry. And then we'll, as that's drying, I'll move some of this stuff out of the way. Okay, next thing we need as this dries is that, wipe off my hands, piece of basic white cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Okay, I think this is dry. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take it and we're going to crumble it all up. Get it nice and small and crumbly. Let's see. We'll be able to, oh, no, we're not gonna adhere it yet. We need to do some coloring. I forgot. Or you could leave it like that. That's pretty too. Okay, we're going to use our Stampin' Blends to color this. I'm using Melon Mambo for the flower. And I'm using, this is the light Melon Mambo. And I'm using the dark Daffodil Delight. Now, Stampin' Blends will run on tissue paper. So you have to be very careful when you start coloring. I use this end. I don't know what end that's called. It's the skinny end. And I just dab a little. Dab. And let it run and fill in. Dab. And let it run and fill in. Otherwise, if you look at this, the one I made, it will run outside of the black lines. So just a little bit of ink. Just a little bit. Okay, now the petals on the flower are going to be a little bit trickier. So I start by just drawing a line in the middle. Now obviously if it runs from here to here, it's not a big deal, but it's, see, I did put a little too much on there. Shame on me. Oh well, that's the beauty of handmade stuff. It's never perfect. And then as it runs a little, I go back and fill in. Okay, I think that's good enough. Okay, then after it's all colored, you make sure it's dry, crinkle it all up. I always, you don't know how many times I've glued this tissue down to a piece of cardstock before crinkling it. But I'm always one step ahead of myself. Okay, there. I strained it out. It's crinkled. You can see all the texture in there. Okay, now we need our cardstock. Okay, and some liquid glue. And I have here 1/4 of a sponge, not even 1/4 of a sponge. I'm going to add some liquid glue to this cardstock. And spread it around. Just like that. And then I'll put this on here. And spread it out and try to smooth out as many wrinkles as I can. Okay. That looks pretty good. If you got some big wrinkles in there, that's okay. I think that adds dimension and texture to the card. Okay, now I'm going to trim this piece because I need to run it through my Big Shot to, not my Big Shot, my Stampin' Cut and Emboss. Using the Everyday Details dies. And I'll go do that and be right back. Largest rectangle of the perennial postage dies, I'm sorry, not Everyday Details, of the perennial postage dies to cut this out. And I just noticed that I got some Stampin' Blend on my tabletop. Now hopefully if I get some alcohol it'll get this off, because I just tried wiping it and it won't come off, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. I forgot to get my silicone mat out to put down as a bag. But so I've got this cut out now. Okay, next thing we're going to stamp is the hello in Melon Mambo ink in on this cutout banner. I just need to find the hello. You know, I know if you've visited with me before, you know that I am not a very organized stamper. I usually have a nice big mess, and but things eventually get done, and sometimes they don't turn out too bad. So, okay, so we're going to stamp the hello from, what stamp set is this? I think it's a retired, might be a retired set. It is, what is it? Iridescent Blooms. Maybe it's not retired. I don't know, but we're going to stamp, we're going to use the hello, because this card is a combination of 2 cards that I saw on Pinterest. So it's sort of cased, but it's not, because it's, I made it my own. That's what casing is. Okay, so we need our card base. I'm going to add some glue to the back of my card base and put it, or to the back of my first layer. I'm going to attach it to my card base. I'm not good at talking and working at the same time. When I work, my tongue usually hangs out, so let's see. Is that straight? Okay, there's that. We'll put some glue on the back of this. We'll put that in the middle. In the middle. I need more glue on the edges. When you run the tissue and cardstock through the stamp, cut, and emboss machine, it smooths out some of the wrinkles as well. So if you don't get them all when you first attach the tissue to the cardstock, the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine will smooth out the rest. Can you see the texture on there? I hope you can. Okay, so that's on there. Next thing we're going to do is I cut out a butterfly out of gold foil using the, what is it? Butterfly Brilliance dies. I know it's retired, but you know, I have to use some of my retired stuff too. And I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of the sentiment. I'm going to use my edges because I don't want to throw them away. And we will put this right here. Okay, and then I have some gold thread. This was Baker's Twine Trio Pack. This is probably retired too, but I'm going to tie a bow with some of this gold twine. And I'm going to use a glue dot to attach it right there. And of course I don't have everything I need within reach, but that's typical of when I'm doing something. Okay, so we're going to take this glue dot off and that bow and stick it right there. Whoops, there's a glue dot. Oh, managed to salvage it. I'm going to put a glue dot on the back of my butterfly and put her right there. And I'm going to trim these ends a little because I use a little too much. Come on. Could have chosen a better pair of scissors, right? I have a better pair. Okay, we got that. And then on my original card, I had a few black splotches, so I decided to add a few embellishments. These are gold adhesive backed swirls. These are definitely retired, but we're going to use a couple just so we make it look like the other card. And I used a tiny bee trinket, which is in the new mini catalog. And let's see, I'll add a drop of glue. Oh, you know what I noticed? I just did. I adhered the tissue paper upside down. See, when you're stamping with me, anything is possible. I'll show you what I mean. Let me put this little bee on here. Go right there with a little bit of glue. Okay, and that's our finished product. Okay, and if you notice, the taller flower is on the left here. And when I stamped it, it was on the right, like this one. So what I ended up doing was crinkling the tissue paper and gluing it upside down. Not the first time that's happened, not a big deal, still looks good. The words are backwards, but hopefully nobody will read the words. So that's how you do the faux silk technique. But let me show you another card. You don't only have to use the Memento Black and color with Stampin' Blends. You can stamp with colored ink as well, like I did on this card. This is Delightful Wishes. It's also in the current mini catalog. It's two-step stamping set, and I just absolutely love it and the colors. So that's how you do the faux silk technique, and we did a little bit of masking, and I hope you enjoyed your time here today. So until next time, happy stamping.